All right, we've made it this far. We're moving into section 2.9 of the CDL driver's manual. Next thing we're going to start talking about is distracted driving. We talked a little bit about that earlier, about hands-free devices and things like that. Distracted driving, it causes a lot of accidents. Have everything ready to go. Have your pre-tuned auto sets on your radios, one touch for your phones and communications. Keep things handy. You don't want to be driving, eating, and all that stuff riding down the road. So distracted driving is a big problem. You got to remember, you're a professional driver driving a vehicle that can weigh in excess of 80,000 pounds and 70 feet long and 13.6 or taller vehicles. It's dangerous when you start getting distracted and driving. So I'm going to read what it says here just a little bit. I'm not going to read everything like always. You guys can read just like I can. If I run across something I think needs to be talked about, and we'll highlight it. If I highlight it, it's a good chance it could be on your test. I may not catch everything, but I'm going to catch a lot of it. As a driver, distraction is anything that takes your attention away from driving. Whenever you are driving a vehicle and your full attention is not on the driving task, you're putting yourself, passengers and other vehicles, and pedestrians in danger. Distracted driving can cause collisions resulting in injury, death, or property damage. Activities inside the vehicle that can distract your attention include talking to passengers, adjusting the radio, CD player. Boy, that's telling how old this book is. CD player or climate controls. Eating, drinking, or smoking. Reading maps or other literature. Picking up something that fell. Talking on a cell phone or CB radio. Reading or sending text messages. Using any type of telematic or electronic devices such as navigation systems, you get the idea. Possible distractions that could occur outside of moving vehicle, outside traffic, vehicles or pedestrians, outside events such as police pulling someone over or a crash scene, sunlight, sunset. You can read that. 2.9.1, the distracted driving crash problem. The Large Truck Crash Causation Study, LTCCS, reported that 8% of large truck crashes occurred when commercial motor vehicle drivers were externally distracted, and 2% of large truck crashes occurred when the driver was internally distracted. Approximately 5,500 people are killed each year on U.S. roadways, and an estimated 448,000 are injured in motor vehicle crashes involving distracted driving. That's by the NHTSA Traffic Safety Facts, distracted driving. Research indicates that the burden of talking on a cell phone, even if it's hands-free, saps the brain of 39% of energy and would be ordinarily devoted to safe driving. Drivers who use handheld device are more likely to get into a crash serious enough to cause injury. Again, from the NHTSA. You can see that website if you want to look at some of that at www.distraction.gov. 2.9.2, effects of distracted driving. Effects of distracted driving include slowed perception. We talked about perception and how that your reaction time, perception, and all that goes together as far as total stopping distances. So effects of distracted driving include slowed perception, which may cause you to be delayed in perceiving or completely fail to perceive an important traffic event, delayed decision making, and improper action, which can cause you to be delayed in taking the proper action or make incorrect inputs to the steering, accelerator, or brakes. Types of distraction: physical distraction, one that causes you to take your hands off the wheel or eyes off the road, such as reaching for an object. Mental distraction, activities that take your mind away from the road. So let's focus on this, Brett, because we've got 3 definitions here. And you may be asked these questions, so let's talk about physical distraction. One, physical is one that causes you to take your hands or eyes off the road, physical. Mental, activities that take your mind away from the road, such as engaging conversation with a passenger thinking about. So physical is your eyes and hands or your body, right? Mental is taking your mind off of it. So these right here, you want to put a little thought into and be ready to answer those on the test. Both physical and mental distraction. Even greater chance a crash can happen, such as talking on a cell phone or sending or reading text messages. So these are big issues. 30 years ago, we didn't have to worry about it too much. We didn't have the cell phones. So now we do. We're going to get serious now. We're talking about cell phones and mobile phones. 2.9.4. 49 CFR Part 383, 384, 390, 391, and 392 of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. And again, download that in your Play Store to FMCSR, and restricts the use of handheld mobile telephones by drivers of commercial motor vehicles, and it implements new driver disqualification sanctions of CMVs who fail to comply with this federal restriction, or who have multiple convictions for violating a state or local law or ordinance on motor vehicle traffic control that restricts the use of handheld mobile telephones. Additionally, motor carriers are prohibited from requiring or allowing drivers of CMVs to use handheld mobile telephones. There's a lot of companies now, like I said, they're using AI technology where they're facing you and watching you, and they're telling you. So always assume you're being watched. Whether it doesn't matter whether you agree with it or not, you're being watched. You say, I don't have a camera in my phone or in my truck. Not all of them do, but more and more are using driver-facing cameras, and the AI is going to pick up and see when you're on the phone or tell when you're touching the phone, stuff like that. But with the ELDs, the electronic logging devices, they're connected to the engine of the truck. So the truck's moving. It's hard to lie in your logbook. So you're always being watched whether you think you're being watched or not. Keep that in mind. The use of handheld telephone means using at least one hand to hold a mobile phone to conduct a voice communication. So use hands-free devices. I don't have to go into too much. You guys get the idea of this. You all have been hearing this since you started driving a vehicle. You hear about it all the time in every safety briefing that you're going to get. Hands-free devices. Don't do anything distracted. So here it is. So the penalties. Your CDL will be disqualified after 2 or more convictions. Disqualified for 2 or more convictions of any state law on handheld mobile telephone use while operating a commercial vehicle. Disqualification is 60 days for the second offense. So, second offense, you disqualify for 60 days from driving a commercial vehicle. Within 3 years and 120 days for 3. Read that. It's disqualification is 60 days for the second offense within 3 years, and 120 days for 3 or more offenses in 3 years. In addition, the first and each subsequent violation of such prohibition are subject to civil penalties. So not only is you're going to be suspended from driving with your CDL, you're also going to be fined $2,750. And chances are your employer, here we go, your employers may also be subject to penalties up to $11,000. So that's why these companies are taking it serious about you being on the phones, and that's why they're putting AI cameras on you nowadays, because you're going to get fined almost $3,000, $2,750. They're going to get an $11,000 fine. If I'm your employer and they're going to fine me $11,000 for you being on the phone, I'm going to watch you. I don't want that penalty. There is an emergency exception that allows you to use handheld device. Emergency, okay? So let's keep in mind the penalties, the offenses. So disqualification is 60 days for the second offense within 3 years, and 120 days for 3 or more offenses within 3 years. $2,750, and employers are going to pay $11,000. Woo! Don't come to work for me because I'm watching you. Texting 2.9.5. And again, you can get your Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulation Handbook, and you can just look this up. 49 CFR Part 383, 384, 390, 391, 392, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations prohibits texting by commercial motor vehicle drivers while operating. So not only can you talk on the, you can't talk on the phone, hold it up here or down here. That's not hands-free. Headset, hands-free device, boop. It's still distracted driving. We talked about that earlier. It's still distracted driving. You're being distracted mentally. But you've got it in your hands, now we're in bigger trouble. Texting requires your hands. They have some apps for, I know my car has it, where I get a message come across. Your little brother sent you a message. Would you like to respond? Yes, and you respond vocally. And I just have to say yes. I don't have to push any buttons. So that's the technologies out there. That's the technology that you want if you're going to be doing this. There's some messages you need to get, but be careful. It's distracted driving. So I don't have to give you a definition of what texting is. You got phones, you know what texting is. So 2.9.6, don't drive distracted. What are kind of distractions? We talked about eating, drinking, having conversations with passengers, talking on the phone, receiving texts. The GPS is fighting for music, and they talk about CDs. I'm not sure how many CDs are out there nowadays, but still, if you're sitting there searching for your music, if you don't have your radio stations pre-programmed by one touch or by voice commands, that's it can be, it increases your distractions. So you guys got an idea what that is. Watch out for other distracted drivers. And you as a truck driver, you're sitting up higher than everyone else, and you look down, every car that goes by you is going to have a phone in their hand. So we're watching out for those folks because they're not paying attention. You'll be, if you want to find out how many do a study, you're better off counting the ones that don't have a phone in their hand. I'm not saying that's what you do. I'm just saying that's how common it is nowadays. Everybody's ignoring the laws of their states and the federal government. Cars, it's just ridiculous. People are getting hurt. What was that number? Over 400,000 people were injured because of distracted driving, and most of it's due to cell phones. Let's move into 2.10, aggressive drivers and road rage. Just because someone's aggressive doesn't mean they have road rage. An aggressive driver is somebody zipping in and out of traffic. They're having fun, or they think they're having fun. They're causing havoc to the drivers around them, but they're aggressive. They're on your butt. They're passing you, zipping around, cutting you off short. They're very aggressive. It doesn't mean they're angry. So there's a difference. An aggressive driver is not a new problem. However, in today's world, where heavy and slow-moving traffic, tight schedules are the norm, more and more drivers are taking out their anger and frustration in their vehicles. Crowded roads leave little room for error, leading to suspicion and hostility among drivers, and encourage them to take personally the mistakes of other drivers. Aggressive driving is the act of operating a motor vehicle in selfish, bold, or pushy manner without regard for the rights or safety of others. Road rage is operating a vehicle in the intent of doing harm. So aggressive driving is operating selfish manners, right? Road rage is operating with the intent of doing harm to other people physically or assaulting their vehicle. Don't be an aggressive driver. How do you feel before you even start your vehicle has a lot to do with how stress will affect you while driving. How do you reduce your stress? Maybe listen to easy music, right? Give driving your full attention. Be realistic about your travel time. So if you don't want to be an aggressive driver, everybody has the potential to be an aggressive driver. If you don't believe me, leave 10 minutes late for somewhere. You'll take more risk than normal. You're a little bit more of a hurry because you didn't leave early enough. So give yourself time. I'm not going to read that. You can read that. What do you do when you're confronted by an aggressive driver? Get out of the way. Again, most of the time they're tailgating you. Get out of the way. Give them room. We talked about that earlier, but how to deal with tailgaters. Give yourself room. Leave a gap in front of you so they can come around you and get out of your way. Road rage. I call that prison rules. So when you're dealing with somebody with road rage, they're mad, they're angry, they're wanting to do you harm. We use prison rules. Don't make eye contact. Ignore them. They're going to get mad. They're going to yell at you. They're going to tell you that you're number one. Not that finger, but they're going to tell you that you're number one. And they're going to go on down the road, and they're going to be somebody else's problem. They get past you. But don't let your pride get in the way of it. Don't create the conflict. Road rage is exactly what it is. You haven't done anything, and they're just angry at the world. Let them go on. Let them about their business. But the difference is, road rage, they want to do you harm, and aggressive driving. They're just being selfish and just ignoring road rules and stuff. So before we move on, we're going to do a little test your knowledge of subsections 2.9 and 2.10 there. What are some tips to follow so you won't become a distracted driver? What are some tips? The whole session, go back and read them. Pre-program your radio stations. Have one-touch commands or voice commands for your phone systems, your text systems. Don't be texting and driving. Get the apps. The technology's out there. Get the apps and the communication devices that allow you to do that. Even then, that's still distracted driving, but it will help alleviate taking your eyes off the road and everything else. You're still splitting your mental capacity with your physical capacity because you're distracted by the conversation or distracted by the text, even though you may not have it in your hand. So avoid that if you can. How do you use in-vehicle communications equipment cautiously? Like we said, one-touch commands, voice commands, right? How do you recognize a distracted driver? You can see their movement in the vehicle. You can see them in the road. Are they looking at the road? Are they looking down? Trucks, we got really good advantage. They're on their phone. That's one way to do it. What is the difference between aggressive driving and road rage? Aggressive driving is a driver just being selfish. They may not be angry. They may be happy, listening to loud music, zipping in and out. Oh, we can identify that. Road rage, those guys are angry. They're angry. They're shaking their fist at you, telling you're number one, screaming at you. Don't make eye contact. Just ignore them. Best thing you do, again, create the space in front of you. Give them some more to go. You give them some more to go, they'll be out of your hair. They're aggressive. They're already trying to get down the road anyway. So prison rules, right? No eye contact. What should you do when confronted with an aggressive driver? Again, we just talked about that. What are some things you can do to reduce your stress before and while you drive? Leave early enough so you're not stressed out getting there on time. It's easy listening to music, something that's going to make you comfortable and stress-free. Eat before you go, so you're not eating and drinking and driving down the road, drinking sodas or whatever, and definitely not alcohol, but all that stuff, just so you can focus on the driving. We're going to move into 2.11, 2.11, driving at night. It's more dangerous. Why? Because of visibility. You can't see as you normally see during the daytime. Your visibility is restricted. A lot's going on. What do we worry about at nighttime? Most of the time, animals run out in front of us. Deer and dogs and raccoons and all the type of animals that run out in the roads. I'm constantly on the lookout. So you got to have scanning the roads all the time, down the edges of the roads. Don't outrun your headlights. You should be able to stop within the distance that your headlights are shining. If I can't stop within that distance, I need to slow down so I can. You're greater risk at nighttime. We get tired at nighttime. Our bodies want to get tired and we want to rest. So those are the things that you got to take into consideration. Make sure you have plenty of rest. 2.11.2, driving factors, vision. Yep. We talked about that. You have to be able to see, right? They're talking about, if you go down and read that, they're talking about make sure you're wearing your glasses, and if you wear glasses. Glare is another thing. Glare from the other vehicles that coming at you and stuff. You don't look directly into their headlights. They're coming eastbound and you're going westbound. Don't look at their headlights. You're looking in the middle of the road, but your kind of focal point is to the right. That white line on the right side of the road over there. You're still seeing ahead of you. You're still seeing this, but your center point should be focusing on that line on the right side over there so you can defeat some of that glare. Look at the right side of the road. Yep. Watch the sidelines when someone coming towards you has very bright lights on. Fatigue and a lack of alertness. Fatigue is physical or mental tiredness that can be caused by physical or mental strain, repetitive tasks, illness, or lack of sleep. Just like alcohol and drugs, it impairs your vision and judgment. Fatigue causes errors related to speed and distance, increases your risk of being in a crash, causes you not to see and react to hazards as quickly, and affects your ability to make critical decisions. When you are fatigued, you could fall asleep behind the wheel, injuring or killing yourself. Micro sleeps, that's what you riding down the road and you kind of trying to catch your head keeps nodding. That's micro sleep. You're actually falling asleep for microseconds. That's dangerous. We talked about how much danger distracted driving is. Fatigued or drowsy driving is one of the leading causes of traffic collisions. under the NHTSA estimates that 100,000 police-reported crashes a year are the result from drowsy driving. According to the National Sleep Foundation Sleep in America poll, 60% of Americans have driven while feeling sleepy, and more than one-third, 36% or 103 million people, admit to have actually fallen asleep at the wheel. Drivers may experience short bursts of sleep lasting only a few seconds or fall asleep for longer periods of time. Either way, the chance of a collision increases dramatically. At-risk groups, the risk of a crash due to drowsy driving is not uniformly distributed across the population. Crashes tend to occur at times when sleepiness is most pronounced. For example, during the night and in the mid-afternoon. Most people are less alert at night, especially after midnight. This is particularly true if you have been driving for a long time. The individuals who drive at night are much more likely to have fall asleep crashes. So we'll get the idea of that, right? What are some warning signs of fatigue? Feeling difficulty focusing, yawning, daydreaming, wandering your thoughts, trouble remembering the last few miles, trouble keeping your head up, drifting from your lane, feeling restless and irritable. When you are tired, trying to push on is far more dangerous than most drivers think. It's a major cause of fatal accidents. If you notice any signs of fatigue, stop driving and go to sleep for the night or take a 15 to 20 minute nap. You're better off taking a nap than drinking a cup of coffee. A cup of coffee or an energy drink, that may elevate you for a little while, but then the crash comes. It makes you even more tired. There's no replacement for sleep, but sleep. You can go into sleep debt. If your body requires, everybody's body is different, but if your body requires 8 hours of sleep at night, but for the past 3 days in a row you're getting 6.5, you're in debt. Your body has not got that proper amount of sleep yet. So even though you rest at 6.5, you can function. You're going to find yourself day after day of doing that you're going to start getting a little bit more tired. The best way to fix that is get that required amount of sleep. Coffee and energy drinks, they give you a short amount of energy, but it's not going to last long. You're better off taking a nap, going to sleep. Getting out and walking around doing jumping jacks, a little bit of exercise is better than the coffee is, believe it or not. So get your adequate amount of sleep. We're going to go to 2.11.3, roadway factors: poor lighting, drunk drivers. We talked about that earlier on in some of the other sections there, but this is the same stuff. Less light means you will not be able to see. Even when there are lights, a road scene can be confusing. Traffic signals and hazards can be hard to see up against background signs, shop windows, and other lights. Drive slower when lighting's poor. Drunk drivers and driving under the influence of drugs are a hazard to themselves and to you. Be especially alert around closing times for bars and taverns. Watch for drivers who have trouble staying in their lane or maintaining speed, who stop without reason, or show other signs of being under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Vehicle factors: headlights. At night, your headlights will usually be the main source of light for you to see by and for others to see you. You can't see nearly as much with your headlights as you can in the daytime. With low beams, you can see ahead about 250 feet, and with the high beams, about 350 feet to 500 feet. So if you remember us talking about normal condition stopping distance, it's in excess of 419 feet. And here at nighttime, I can only see up to 350 to 500 feet, and that's with my high beams on, right? So slow the vehicle down, especially if you dim your lights, slow the vehicle down. Even if the posted speed limit is what it is, you can't stop within that distance. Don't outrun your headlights. Turn signals and brake lights. At night, your turn signals and brake lights are even more important for telling other drivers what you intend to do. Windshield and mirrors, it's more important at night than in the daytime to have clean windshield and mirrors. Self-explanatory. Night driving procedures, 2.11.5. Pre-trip procedures. Make sure you are rested and alert. Part of your pre-trip, huh? Documentation that a lot of people don't think about is your registrations, your insurances, your trailer registrations, your inspections are all up to date. If you're drowsy, sleep before you drive. Even a nap can save your life. Avoid blinding others. Glare from your headlights are the cause for problems, because if you're being blinded by other vehicles, you can blind other people as well by your headlights not being adjusted properly. And don't have your high beams on vehicles coming at you. Here are some numbers for you. So dim your headlights within 1,000 feet of an oncoming vehicle. And if you're following another vehicle from behind, you dim them within 200 feet. These numbers you're going to need to know. So highlight those, or just use this page here, come back and look at it again. But these numbers you're going to need. Dim your lights within 1,000 feet of oncoming vehicles, and when following another vehicle within 200 feet. Avoid glare of oncoming vehicles. Do not look directly at the lights. Look slightly to the right. Talked about that earlier. Use your high beams when you can. If the vehicles are more than 1,000 feet away from you, use your high beams. You want to see. Sides of the roads are easier to see. You can see further down the road. Animals a lot sooner, a lot quicker, and you can see better. There's no replacement for sleep but sleep. If you get drowsy, stop at the next safe place, safe haven, rest area, truck stop, wherever you can park safely, and get some sleep. Driving in the fog, this can make you tired too, and the visibility is horrible. Sometimes it's for short amount of time, sometimes it's for extended amount of times. Don't confuse what I'm about to say. I'm not saying every time it's foggy outside, you stop. Sometimes it's incremental. But the safest thing you can do for driving in fog is to stop, park, and wait for the fog to lift. That's the safest thing you can do. Now, if you are driving through fog, use your low beam headlights. Use your four-way flashers. Slow down before you enter the fog. You see the fog wall coming up, don't be blasting through. You see it coming. Go ahead and slow down before you get there. You don't know what's in that fog. Maybe somebody had an accident in there. You want to give yourself reaction time. Remember, you got to be able to stop within the distance that you see. So your visibility, don't outrun your headlights, don't outrun your visibility. There's your turning on your four ways. It should have a thing there about, there's your low beam headlights. There we go. Or fog lights. Don't confuse fog lights with your running lights. Fog lights are not white. They're not clear. They're not bright. True fog lights are usually amber in color, and it gives you a better view. So if you have the ability and you have those lights on the bottom of your vehicle and you can change them out for yellow ones, those are true fog lights. Even listen for traffic. You can't see them, but you can hear a lot of stuff, right? Be careful passing other vehicles. Avoid doing that if you have to, if you can. Driving in the winter, we're at 2.13. Driving in the winter, vehicle checks. There's some important things to check when the winter time rolls around. We have to be able to see. We have to make sure that our vehicle's not, that it's going to run. We have the proper coolant, stuff like that. Do a good pre-trip. You always do a good pre-trip, but pay special attention to certain things in the wintertime. This applies for summertime too, as far as coolant antifreeze goes. So make sure it's at the right level. Make sure you have extra in your vehicle. Professional drivers carry extra coolant. They carry extra washer fluid, extra oils, stuff that are known to be needed. So coolant level, make sure the coolant system is full. There's enough antifreeze in the system to protect against freezing. We don't want it to freeze. Defrosting and heating equipment. If your defroster and heater doesn't work, when the snow and ice build up on your windshield, it can't thaw it off. It can't melt it off. You can't see. So heater and the defroster is very important. Make sure it's working properly. When you do your pre-trip, make sure you put your hand on top of that dash and make sure you feel the heat and the air coming out. Wipers and washers. Make sure your wipers and washers are working. Make sure your wipers are flush, making contact with the windshield without streaking and leaving streaks. Make sure the rubber isn't torn on your blades. Make sure they're connected properly and not falling off. Washer fluid. Washer fluid is highly important. It gets cold and it freezes. Make sure the washer fluid you're using will withstand the temperatures that you're driving in. Up here in Minnesota and North Dakota, we have to get that sub-zero washer fluid, and it can't freeze. If it freezes, it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, now we can't wash off the salt and the grime and everything being thrown up on the windshields by other vehicles. So make sure you have the washer fluid is appropriate for your season. Tires, make sure your tires have enough traction. Make sure the tire tread has enough traction to push you and pull you through the snow. You got to be able to steer. You have to be able to get some traction in the snow. Some states required by law, usually between April and October, or October and April. But there's some states different, especially out west when you're talking about Colorado and the higher altitudes, Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota. Make sure you have tire chains on your vehicle. California. Some say even if it's not snowing, if you get pulled over for an inspection and you don't have your tire chains at least on the vehicle with you, you're in violation. You're required to carry tire chains in certain states during certain times of the year, so make sure you have them. Make sure you know how to use them. Don't make the first time you ever put tire chains on the side of a mountain somewhere. Make sure you get somebody shows you how to actually use them. Storing them and hanging them and preparing them is just as important as knowing how to lay them over your tires. Lights and reflectors. We have DOT tape down the sides of our vehicles. Our lights and reflectors. Sometimes our lights double as reflectors, especially like the amber lights and the red lights. Yeah, they shine, but they also have reflective material in them. Make them clean. Make sure they're not cracked, missing, or broken. Make sure they're clean, clear, and working. Clean. Even the DOT tape down the side, make sure it's not torn or ripped or damaged, and clean. A good way for a DOT officer to pick who they're going to pull into the weigh station for an inspection is that truck that's coming through there, and you can't see the DOT tape or the reflectors. If you've done a pre-trip, you make sure you don't just dry wipe the tape because it'll damage the tape, but get you some kind of fluid, some Windex or something, and that way you can wipe off your reflective tape and your lights and make sure they're clean and clear. You got to be able to be seen. If they're covered up, you can't be seen. Windows and mirrors, make sure they work properly. Make sure that mirrors, they have heater devices in them. Make sure the heater works in your mirrors so they don't fog up, especially your plane mirrors there. So you can't see out of them. They're froze up, you can't see out of them. Handholds, steps, and deck plates. You've got to be able to get in and out of the vehicle. On your catwalks and your steps, make sure your handles and your steps are cleared off. Even the steps coming in and out of your truck, that's a good way to slip out of the vehicle and hurt yourself because that snow and ice accumulates on your steps. Radiator shutters and water and the winter front. It gets so cold sometimes you have to put a winter front, a covering over the front of your grill. Make sure you have them. That keeps the engine warm. If your engine's warm, your heater and defrosters are working properly, your engine's staying warm and keeping your engine from freezing. And up in these northern states, especially North Dakota and Minnesota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, you're talking about sub-zero temperatures. Sometimes it's negative 20, negative 30, negative 40, below zero. So these winter fronts are highly important. So make sure that it's able to keep the engine warm and it's still able to breathe. You can't block it completely off. It's still got to be able to have air coming through it. Your exhaust system, we talked about that during pre-trip stuff when we were talking about violations and things that would be deadline. Any kind of exhaust leak is going to be a deadline item. Any kind of damage to your exhaust system, you don't want to drive it. That's poison gas coming up through your cabs. And some vehicles have sleeper berths in them, so you'll be sleeping in the trucks and that exhaust could be coming up through the... We don't want to do that. So now we're talking about 2.13.2, driving on slippery surfaces. Drive slowly and smoothly on slippery surfaces. If it is very slippery, you shouldn't drive at all. Stop at the first safe place. Start gently and slowly. That means easy off the clutch if you have one, or if you're in an automatic, gently on the accelerator. We're not just doing that, right? That's going to cause a drive wheel spin or a skid. We're not over accelerating, we're not over braking, we're not oversteering. Check for ice. How do you check for ice on the road? Overpasses, lack of spray. A car is driving, it's snowing, it's icy and rainy it looks like, and a car passes you and it's not throwing water out from under its tires. That's frozen. Look on your mirrors. Is your mirror collecting and accumulating ice? That road is frozen. Adjust for turning and braking to conditions. You can't drive like you would in normal conditions. If I'd normally take this curve at 30 miles per hour, but if there's ice and snow, I'm backing down. as slow as necessary. You feel the roads. You got a steer wheel skid that we can damage. We go make a right turn into it, but it keeps going straight. My steer tires do not have any traction because of the ice, and I keep going straight. We'll talk about that in a little while when we're talking about skids, but that's a steering wheel skid. Slow down or stop to get back get your steering traction back. Adjust speed to conditions. Yeah, we talked about that. Adjust space to conditions. Whatever normal space you'd have, double or triple that space. We still need room to maneuver and react to things in front of us. Wet brakes. When driving in heavy rain or deep standing water, your brakes are going to get wet. If your brakes are wet, are they going to stop as effectively as a dry brake? No. If you're going to drive through a puddle of water, gently apply. I'm not talking about stomp on the brakes. I'm telling you gently apply them just so the lining or the disc meets the pad or the rotor and pad, or the disc and the pad where they're making contact, and that helps keep it dried off. It's warming, it's keeping contact, or your drum and your lining, just to make contact when you drive through puddles. Slow down, downshift, put it in lower gear. Even if automatic, you can still downshift by hitting that manual selection and hitting downshift, right? So that's going to be a question on your test, driving through puddles. So avoid driving through puddles or flowing water, but if you do, slow down. This is going to be the answer for driving through standing water. Gently put on the brakes. So we just got through winter driving. Now 2.14, driving in very hot weather. Again, pre-trips, coolant. Vehicle checks. Do a normal pre-trip inspection, but pay special attention to the following items. Tires. Check the tire mounting and air pressure. Inspect the tires every 2 hours or every 100 miles when driving in very hot weather. Hot pressure, excuse me. Check the tire mounting and air pressure. Inspect the tires every 2 hours or every 100 miles when driving in very hot weather. Air pressure increases with temperature. Do not let air out or the pressure will be too low when the tires cool off. If a tire is too hot to touch, remain stopped until the tire cools off. Otherwise, the tire may blow out or catch fire. Yeah, so you ever driven in those conditions? Have you ever driven through Arizona, through Nevada, New Mexico, El Paso, Texas? It gets hot. And the big problem is when you do this is, let's give you an example. I leave Wilmington, North Carolina, and my destination is going to be Los Angeles, California. Beautiful weather in North Carolina. My air pressure is 105 in my air tires, whatever the manufacturer recommends. And I'm driving. As I'm driving through the desert and I'm going out west, the road temperature gets hotter, the sun's hotter, it's 100 and some degrees outside. The air pressure is going to expand. I'm going to have a lot more air pressure in my tires when I go through the desert. So keep an eye on your tires. If they're too hot, don't just reach over and grab them. Hover your hand above it. You can feel the heat radiating before you touch it. Don't let air out of a hot tire. One, when it does cool off, you're not going to have much air pressure, but also it gives that hot air an escape valve. So you risk it blowing up on you. So don't let air out of a hot tire. Engine oil keeps the engine cool. The engine keeps it lubricated, right? And it keeps it cooled off. Make sure there's enough engine oil. The appropriate amount of engine oil, when you're on your dipstick, you check it with the engine off on level ground, important. You put it in, you wipe it off, you put it back in, and the level should be between add and full. It doesn't have to be completely full, and it doesn't have to be, but somewhere in between add and full. As long as it's above the add mark and below the fill mark, you're in good shape. Make sure you do your routine oil changes, because you can lose the viscosity of your oil over time and it won't do the job it's supposed to do, and it's going to damage your engine. Engine coolant, same thing in winter weather, where in the winter it keeps it from freezing, but in the summertime it helps keep your engine cool. So make sure we have antifreeze, coolant, right? It's the same thing. Make sure it's appropriate for your vehicle. If you have a mechanic or your shop or whatever, they'll tell you what to put in. If not, you can read the owner's manual. It tells you what type of coolant or antifreeze to use. Don't mix green and red together. That's not good. Make sure it's for your vehicle. Some vehicles have a sight glass. This may be on your test. Some vehicles have sight glasses. So it's a see-through coolant. So you have a metal container, it has a cap on top, and it has a little glass circle in the middle of it. Or some coolant reservoirs are plastic and not clear but transparent where you can see the levels. This keeps you from having to take off that cap. And you do not want to take off that cap when the engine's hot. I don't like taking it off at any time, but that's a pressurized system. You crack that cap, and boy, that's a good way to hurt yourself. That's a way to get burnt. That's a way for that cap to explode. So don't. When's the best time to add coolant? At your pre-trip inspection, when the engine's been off for a long time, it's cold. That's the best time to add coolant, when you notice it during your pre-trip. Same thing with your oils and everything else. That's why we do pre-trip inspection. That would be considered preventive maintenance. We're preventing troubles down the road. We're adding coolant, we're adding oils, we're adding power steering fluids. If you have a hydraulic clutch on your firewall for your clutch, you would add the fluid for that. But do it before you start this engine running, right? We can check this out before it. Once it gets hot, everything starts pressurizing. Never mess with a pressurized system. I can't stress that enough. But what is a sight glass? It's a glass see-through. It's very small, about the size of a quarter. And it's usually on the front of the tank on a metal container, and it's just a little piece of glass. You can see the coolant, you can see the color and the clear. If it's a certain color, that's your coolant. If it's not a color, and you can see, well, it needs coolant, right? So that's your sight glass. Engine belts. Engine belts, this is going to be a question on your test too. Learn how to check your engine belts. Engine belts, if let's say a pulley seizes up and doesn't turn properly, and that happens, it's a machine, machines break down, they get seized up, the bearings go bad or they get wobbly, it's going to seize up and it's going to cause friction. Those belts can start a fire. Make sure they're not cracked. Make sure the ribs on the inside, again, make sure the engine's off when you do this. You're going to lose a finger if you try to do this while it's running. But check the belts, make sure they're not cracked. The inside ribs are not cracked or broken. Any damage to that where that's not normal for your engine belts, get it replaced. You're not going to go very far. It's just a matter of time before it breaks. And if the DOT officer sees it cracked, broken, or missing, or damaged, you're getting a violation because you didn't do a good pre-trip. Hoses, make sure your coolant hoses are in good condition. That's all hoses, air hoses, coolant hoses, any hoses. Check the connections, check the hoses. Is the hose laying up against something where it's rubbing? If it is, separate them. Get some zip ties, separate them where they're not touching. You're going to cause an abrasion, bump, or a cut on those, and you're going to end up having a leak. So you notice those. If you don't want to do it, if you have a mechanic to do it, do that. If you're not sure what you're doing, but don't let them rub. Don't let them be leaking. That's any hoses, not just coolant hoses. So now we're moving into 2.14.2, driving in the summer. Watch for bleeding tar. So you have asphalt roads, tar in hot weather seeps up through the asphalt and it starts pulling up. You think tar is sticky, and it is, but it's not going to give you traction. It's going to be a pool and it's going to be slippery. So watch for bleeding tar. That's going to be on your. That's going to be a question. You got to know what it is. What is bleeding tar? Tar in the road, pavement, frequently rises surface. It's possible for bleeding tar to be very slippery. It's not sticky. It's not going to give you more traction. It's going to be slippery. Go slowly enough to prevent overheating. So high speeds create more heat for the tires and the engine. In desert conditions, the heat may build up to the point where it is dangerous. The heat will increase chances of tire failure or even fire and engine failure. And a caveat to that as well is if you're in mountain ranges and you're driving, you're going to Arizona, you're on I-10, and all of a sudden you start seeing mountains coming ahead of you. And most trucks, modern trucks, have an engine fan. Now these trucks turn themselves on and off. They have thermostats that turn your fan on. It's a big fan. Turn it on early, especially if you're going to start climbing mountains. That way you can start pre-cooling and keeping your temperature down as you're climbing mountains. Especially if you're heavy and you're climbing these mountains and it's hot weather, it's just going to get hotter and hotter. So let's do a quick little knowledge test here. We're going over subsections 211, 212, 213, and 214. So question 1. You should use low beams whenever you can. Is that true or false? No, that's the opposite of that. Whenever I can, legally, and I'm not blinding someone, I want to use my high beams at nighttime, whenever I can. If they get within 1,000 feet of me, I'm going to dim my headlights. If I'm coming up on them from behind, within 200 feet, I'm going to dim my headlights. But if they're not around and I'm not blinding anyone, boom, high beams. I want to see. High beams means I can see. So that question is going to be false, right? Number 2, what should you do before you drive if you are drowsy? Sleep, rest, exercise. Number 3, what effects can wet brakes cause? Wet brakes. You're not going to slop efficiently, are you? Because you have water between your pads and your drums, or your linings and your drums, or your disc and your pads. Water's in between. It's not going to stop effectively, so it's going to cause problems. Maybe not be able to stop when you need to. Number 4, you should let air out of hot tires so the pressure goes back to normal. Is that true or false? If it's hot and you let air out of it, then it cools down. Are you going to have the same pressure? If it cools down, the air pressure is going to naturally go down anyway. So don't let air out of hot tires. You're going to be underinflated. Or if it's really hot and you try to pop it, it may explode there. So be super careful. But don't. The best thing to do is go in, get you a sandwich, go to the truck stop, go get you a drink, let it cool off for a while, come back, and then worry about it. So you should let air out of hot tires so the pressure goes back to normal. That is a false statement. False. False up here, right? We already talked about that one. I'm not going to bring it in there. So you can safely remove the radiator cap as long as the engine isn't overheated. True or false? Even if it's not, no, overheated means excessive temperature. But if the engine's hot, it's pressurized. If you're going to take the radiator cap off, if you don't know how to do it, nobody's ever showed you, make sure somebody shows you how to do it before you do it, because you can't just grab it and twist it. Even when my engine's been sitting overnight and it's cool as a cucumber, I don't just reach up there and grab it. You crack it and then let the pressure, if there's pressure, you let it, but don't mess with it when the engine's warm or hot. They're talking about overheated, right? Just because it's not overheated doesn't mean I'm going to reach up there and crack that cap. That's a pressurized system. That's dangerous as can be. So you can safely remove the radiator cap as long as the engine isn't overheated? False. These questions may be on the test. All right. So let's go ahead and stop there, and that's a lot longer than normal. I'm just trying to help you guys get through this. You can pause at any time before you continue on. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video before we move into section 2.15, railroad crossings.